Hi, my name is DUANE HENNEN. I'm running for Congress in District 13. As a father, husband, businessman, and pastor, I will serve our communities and lead with a vision for a better future in Northeast Ohio.
Hello world, welcome to another episode of Rant Rave with Don Michaels. Today's special guest is DUANE HENNEN of Warren, Ohio. And he, my friends, is running for Congress in Ohio's 13th District. He's looking to unseat Representative Tim Ryan, who's been in Congress since 2002. DUANE, thanks for being a guest on the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I know you're super busy running your campaign, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with us here today.
Absolutely.
It's quite an honor to be here with you and hear your vision for the future.
Thank you.
So what I did, DUANE, is I took some hot topic questions, hot button questions that are going on in our country right now, and I'm going to ask you those questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm not going to have an opinion.
Okay.
I'm just going to let you represent yourself and your beliefs with the audience. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Okay, so one thing I like to do before we get started, getting into my line of questioning and so forth, is I'd like to find out who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So Mr. Hennon, tell us, who is DUANE HENNEN?
Well, I am a business owner, a pastor, a husband, a father, just an average guy, just, looking to make a difference in our nation, looking to uphold the values that we've held dear for years.
And we definitely have some issues going on in our country right now.
Absolutely, yes.
Some very serious stuff. So, okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started.
Let's go. Okay.
And I'm going to start with the most common one is, what is your position on the Second Amendment and the continued erosion of rights at the state and federal levels?
Well, absolutely. The Second Amendment, that's a very hot topic nowadays. As you know, it's something that's been under attack, and it's not something that's recent. It's been going on for years and years, and they've been just whittling away at it, inch by inch by inch, and it's time that we stand up and we fight for this. Right now I've actually been helping to circulate a petition in a lot of the different counties that we represent, in Trumbull, Summit, Mahoning, Portage, that actually helps to make those counties Second Amendment sanctuary counties. Because I believe so strongly in it. It is our right. It's something that the government is not supposed to infringe upon, and we've allowed it for too long, and we need to fight back on that and hold firm on our values for it.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on exactly what a sanctuary county would mean? I mean, isn't it already protected in the Constitution?
It is absolutely protected. It's basically putting our commissioners, our county commissioners, it's putting our county sheriffs on the spot, and it's taking a petition to them and getting them to agree that no matter what the state says, they're going to uphold our constitutional rights, and they're actually going to uphold the rights of the people, because that's who they work for. They're not just working for the government, they're actually working for the people. So it's getting them to agree that we're going to protect your rights. We're going to make sure that no matter what Governor DeWine says, we're going to actually do what our Constitution says, and we're going to uphold the Constitution. It's the right of the people to have, the Second Amendment right to bear arms.
And as we all know, all elected officials do take an oath of office.
That's right.
To uphold said Constitution.
Absolutely. Not all of them obey that.
And that is true.
Those are the ones we need to get out.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that, sir. I'm going to go ahead and ask a really tough question here. I know this is hard for people, for, against, what have you, but what is your position on abortion?
On abortion, I'm a pastor, as I said, a Christian pastor, and to me, abortion is wrong. It doesn't matter really what the circumstances are. Abortion's wrong. It's murder. You're either pro-life or you're pro-death. There's no in between. And with abortion, I believe life starts at conception. Two cells come together, and all of a sudden you got a new being. And it's not something that we can really give any of it on that. We really got to hold up and start to value life again. We've got problems in this nation that you see teenagers that devalue life, and that's part of the problem. We've devalued life. We've allowed abortion. We've allowed this murder to go on, and all of a sudden things are people aren't worth much of anything anymore.
No value for life.
Yes,
absolutely. Okay, do you support President Trump's agenda on border wall, immigration reform, lower taxes, bigger military, trade reform? Are you following along on his platform, or?
Well, I tell you what, you just listen to a whole bunch of things, and I can put a check mark by every single one of those and say, I absolutely follow along with him. I think, in my lifetime, he's the best president we've had. He's actually stood up for the people, and he's actually doing things that have put, and a lot of people get offended by this, but it puts America first. A government is supposed to protect their citizens. We are not the government of the world. He's not the president of the world. He's a president of the United States, and he's doing an excellent job, and I support him 100%.
Okay. Moving on. The topic of education. Okay. Do you feel the federal government should be involved with education, or should that right be left to the states respectively?
If the federal government's involved in education at all, it might be involved in funding a little bit, and that's it. Their hands should come off. It should be up to the states. It should be up to the local districts to actually form their educational plans for their state. I believe the federal government, I believe it was under Jimmy Carter, began the federal government education system that we know now, and I think we need to get rid of that. We need to give it back to the states and let the states take control of that.
Okay.
And I'll just add one other thing to that. We need to get rid of Common Core. It's kind of destroyed our education system as we know it.
We are definitely falling behind our Western allies when it comes to education.
Absolutely.
At the elementary level. Okay, here's another one for you. Research was conducted a few years ago, and it showed that 49% of Americans agreed that the federal government represented an immediate threat to the rights and freedoms of ordinary citizens. What's your thought on that?
The federal government, I believe, is probably the biggest enemy of our freedoms. They're constantly whittling away at Americans, whether it's through taxes, whether it's through our basic rights, freedom of speech, whether it's religion, whether it's our Second Amendment, what we've talked about, is constantly whittling away. And I would agree, they are a big threat to our personal freedoms.
Okay. Moving on, healthcare. Healthcare is obviously a major topic. The whole Obamacare disaster, which has really put things in turmoil as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
What's your position and thoughts on fixing healthcare and making it available for everybody?
Okay. We heard a lot of talk, and you go back, the first 2 years of President Trump, 2016 to 2018. We heard Republicans talking about this, repeal and replace Obamacare. And we saw very little done with that. We saw, famous for John McCain voting that down to get rid of Obamacare. And I think that's where we need to go. We need to go and get rid of Obamacare. We need to actually make a system that works for everybody. And flat out, I'm not even going to apologize to Bernie because Bernie's wrong. It's not Medicare for all. The Democrat Party is not Medicare for all. The Medicare is already in trouble. But, what we need to do is open up the walls, the state walls, and say, let the free market do what it does best. I've been in business, and I always valued my competitors because, number one, they keep you honest. Number two, they're going to drive the prices down. And when we drive prices down by opening up the walls, state walls, and just allowing it, if I want to buy something from, Texas, I should be able to buy something from Texas. If I want to get it from Hawaii or Alaska, I should be able to get it there. Not that those would necessarily be good choices, but there should be no limitation, and I should be able to get the health plan that works best for my family. Who knows better what's best for my family than my wife and I? Just like you and your family, you can probably pick out a better health care plan than the government can for you. And frankly, I know a lot of people on Medicare, and Medicare just does not work for them. It costs way too much money out of pocket, and we need to make something that actually is working for the American people.
Okay. Another hot topic again, these are all hot topic questions. The environment, fossil fuels, coal mines, oil, offshore drilling. I mean, what's your position on that?
Well, I'll tell you this, when it comes to fossil fuels, you start eliminating fossil fuels like Joe Biden's talked about, Bernie Sanders, one of my competitors, I won't even mention his name, most people know who he is, LL. You take away these fossil fuels in our area, you're going to take away the jobs in this area. we're talking, about building up our economy. We haven't, really allowed Trump to even come into this area that much because we've got a representative now that doesn't represent us. But we've got to protect the fossil fuel, and I'm not saying, hey, let's not protect our environment. I'm all for protecting our environment, but we also got to protect our jobs. We've got to, we've got clean coal, and they're talking about scrapping all this stuff. Let me tell you, it's a nuclear energy, and a lot of them, don't even want to talk about nuclear energy. It can be a benefit. It's not ever going to take away all the fossil fuel uses. Wind and solar is not the greatest thing in this area. So we've got to be smart. We've got to be able to use all of the things that are provided for us and use them wisely.
Okay. You mentioned earlier you're a pastor, so I'm going to kind of throw this question at you.
Don't get me in trouble.
No, not at all. As I continue reading through different sites and paying attention to local news, national news, there seems to be an attack on religious freedoms. What is your position on that?
I'll say that there was a huge attack on religious freedom, and the left is still trying to attack religious freedom. Since Trump came in, he actually freed it up a little bit, and I think we got a ways to go. I am all for repealing and getting rid of the Johnson Amendment 100%. And a lot of that aren't familiar with the Johnson Amendment, it really limited the church, what they could talk about when it came to politics. And I believe in separation of church and state, but we've got it backwards right now. We've got it where we've separated the church where it can't get involved with what goes on politically, and the government's still controlling the church. And we've got to flip that cycle and get back to where it is the church that is free of the state, where the state cannot tell them what to do, and let them have the freedom of speech back.
Okay. Forgive me for sounding ignorant on this, but I have actually never heard of the Johnson Amendment. That is... Can you explain that a little bit more?
That ties in with like your 501c3 organizations where, just to get the federal, it's a loophole to get away from the sales tax and all that stuff to make them a nonprofit. They've actually agreed to, basically almost give up some of their rights. And it silenced them from actually being able to preach politics and there's still, I see plenty on the left that preach politics and they don't get in trouble for it. But being a conservative, if I were to get up behind the pulpit and start preaching politics, I'll guarantee you I'd have someone knocking on my door saying, hey, we're taking away your 501c3.
Okay.
And it's like, to me, and I'll tell any pastor out there, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give unto God what is God's. You know what? Pay your taxes and don't worry about it and just preach what God tells you to preach.
There you have it. Okay. Now, another hot topic here is Social Security.
Yes.
People pay into Social Security from the time they start working until the time they retire.
Yep.
And they receive a minimal amount. I mean, we all have relatives, they $1,200 a month, $800, $900,
Yes.
$1,500, whatever it is. And as we know in our current society, that is just not enough to survive.
It's not feasible. Yeah.
It's not feasible in the least bit. And they're lucky if they get a 3% raise every year or every couple of years. But meanwhile, we have places like the railroad, Congress, different unions. They don't even pay into the system.
Right.
What's your position on that?
I think we have a huge issue with Social Security, and I've talked about this in the past. And Social Security, like you said, it's a hot topic right now because it's under attack. We're looking at probably 10 to 12 years of funding left for that, and Medicare about the same. Mm-hmm. And we've got to do something about that. And I've said from the beginning, it's really the only true entitlement that we have. If you pay into something, it's like getting an IRA, and then all of a sudden, the company that you put that money into, all of a sudden saying, you know what, we're not going to give it to you back. We're not going to give you what we owe you. And Congress has misused the funds. And I think it's up to Congress to change that. And, my personal opinion is that the American people should demand that of every congressman. Call your congressman and say, you know what, get this changed, get it fixed, put the money back in that you've stolen, because it's been stolen from the system, or give up your pensions that you have and put that money back in. And that goes for past, present, and future congressmen. We shouldn't be getting in just for a pension. Number one, that shouldn't be what Congress is about. That's not what it was designed to be. But now it's become a luxury job, and it's like we need to start doing what's right for the American people. And if it's not right for the American people, it shouldn't be right for a congressman.
Okay, thank you for that. Another big topic here, specific to the state of Ohio, and in your district as well, is the drug problem.
Yes.
And human trafficking.
Yes. And they go hand in hand.
And they do go hand in hand.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that topic?
Well, I think, number one, it's something that is addressed very, very little. Human trafficking especially. With human trafficking, we really don't have many agencies around that deal with it. There's no national agency, there's no national task force. If they go from Ohio and they leave the state, there's nothing that connects them all together. And so we need to set up a little bit better of a task force system, a little bit more of, let's get down, and I've talked to local congressmen, and they're always telling me, well, we only have soft data to go on, and we don't have any hard data, so we don't know what to do. Well, isn't it the responsibility of the government to get the hard data? I don't think it's a responsibility of the people to come up and say, hey, we got some hard data here, let's do something. It's the responsibility of the government. We need stricter penalties, people that get caught. And I'm not talking about the victims, because there's a lot of victims and they're the ones getting prosecuted right now. Let's start prosecuting the ones that actually get caught and make sure the penalty fits the crime. Rather than a slap on the wrist and saying it's okay, 30 days in jail and you're out, let's make it fit the crime. You're actually taking someone and using them, whether it's for sex or whether it's for work or no matter what it's for, irregardless, you're taking someone and making it a new form of slavery, and it's wrong. And I think we need to address that. The drug issue, we all know about that. We have clinics right now that, number one, they just substitute one type of addiction and put another. And sometimes maybe methadone and Suboxone might be used for a short time, but they really need to limit that. And I think that ties in with mental health as well. I think we've got a lot of mental health issues, and it can be just like plain old depression. You look at our economy, and I think that leads to those kind of things, and it drives up those markets. But more than that, if you do a trend, and I've done a study as a pastor, over the past 40 years, we've declined spiritually in this community. And as that declines, everything else rises. So we've got to get that into grips, bring morality back into our society.
Okay. So, two more questions for you. One is, who is Tim Ryan? Tim Ryan, he's been in office for 18 years?
18 years, it'll be 18 years.
What has he done for the district, the 13th district?
Well, I'd like to actually...
Or what hasn't he done?
What hasn't he done? He hasn't done his job. He's missed a third of his votes. He votes on some of the craziest things, and then he misses ones that really are important. He really hasn't brought much progress to our area, as everyone knows. He's really done nothing when it comes to, other than minimal things here and there. But to describe Tim Ryan, I like to use a term, and it's this: he is an empty suit. We don't really have a representative here. He doesn't really represent the people. He's represented Tim Ryan very well. He's got paid very well to do absolutely nothing.
Here is an article by Sabrina Eaton from Cleveland.com. And here's a little excerpt on Tim Ryan. Ryan spent much of the past year traveling the country for a presidential bid he abandoned when it didn't catch on. His re-election campaign had $41,050 in it in the Treasury at the end of September, far less than any other incumbent member of Congress from Ohio. Now he's become a target for Hagan, who raised and spent more than $400,000 during the last run. Here's a statement from Ryan. Elections are about citizens, not politicians, said Tim Ryan. I am proud of the work I've done and the hundreds of millions of dollars I have brought back to our community. I have strong relationships on both sides of the aisle. I work with both the business and labor communities, and I have supporters in every corner of the district and the state of Ohio. I very much look forward to defending my record. Now, before you say anything, I went and looked at his record, and that statement is false.
Absolutely, yeah.
That statement is 100%, 95% false.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, he does what politicians do, and this is the problem with a career politician. And honestly, you can, the other name that's mentioned in an article is a career politician as well. And the problem with career politicians is that they lie. They're going to say one thing and they're going to do another. And we don't need someone that's going to get in and just work for themselves. We need someone that's actually going to work for our district. And I don't know, he says he works across the aisle. I don't know one congressman and that one state rep that is a Republican that speaks highly or really enjoys working with Tim at all. So I think this statement is 100% false, and we need a new congressman.
I think I would have to agree with you, sir. Okay, so you know what, I know I said 2 more questions, and that was one of them, but I do have one more. So,
Here's a loaded one.
well, there's no loaded, but here's, they brought in, there's 7 people running in this district.
Well, there's actually only 6, because
Is it
one of
6?
them is, well, he's still on the ballot. Jason Mormando has really dropped out, but he's still on the ballot.
Okay.
And that was due to the death of his family, so, you know,
Okay.
definitely feel bad for him, and he was a nice guy.
So, as I was studying prior to coming out here to see you, Christina Hagan, as you mentioned earlier, she's some sort of a polished politician, it sounds
Yes.
like. And she doesn't even live in this district, is that correct?
That is correct. And now it's only about, I think, 6/10 of a mile outside of the district where she lives.
Okay.
So she lives close.
Okay. Well, what is your position? Because from what I can tell, it looked like she was currently leading the polls, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. What is your position on Miss Hagan?
You know, I've spoke to her a number of times. I think she's a nice woman. I believe, I don't know how, you know, and her people will say she's not a career politician. I don't know how you're not a career politician when you started at the age of 22, and that's really what you've done. She's 31 now. 2 years she's been off, but in that 2 years she ran against Gonzalez, lost in that district against Gonzalez. Now she's looking at Tim Ryan saying, hey, this is a vulnerable seat, so I'm going to run there. She's looking at a free trip to Washington, D.C. But we're going to put the brakes on that. You know, and like I said, I respect her for what some of the things she's done. Some of the things I didn't like about when she was a state rep is the fact that, you know, she's voted when there was a bill up to prohibit hospitals from getting rid of nurses because they couldn't work the overtime hours. She didn't stick up for the people. She stuck up for the hospitals. We need someone that's going to stick up for the people, for the working class of this community, and actually fight for them.
Makes you wonder how much money was given to their
Yes.
whatever.
Absolutely, and it's like, but that's what career politics are all about.
Yes, it is, unfortunately.
And for the little background there, her dad was a state rep for 8 years, got her in as a state rep where she's at. Now he's on the school board for the state of Ohio. Her brother's on the school board for Marlington. Marlington's having all kinds of problems. She'll help to get him in there. And, you know, we're not going to allow it here in District 13.
Right. Time to bring in some fresh new blood.
That's
like
right.
Mr. Hennon here. Okay, thank you for that information. I appreciate that. Now, the final question.
Yes.
The final question is this. Why should people vote for DUANE HENNEN?
You know, the reason people should vote for DUANE HENNEN is because, number one, I'm an honest guy. I am a leader. I call myself a visionary conservative. Because, you know, you hear all the time about this progressive left. There's nothing progressive about the left. There's no progress there. It's all going backwards. We need someone with vision. You know, and I'll throw a Bible passage out there for you that, you know, if you're a Christian, you can take it. If you're not, then I don't know what you're going to do with it. Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people will perish. This district has been dying for years because there's been no vision here. There's been no real leadership, and we need a leader. We need someone that's actually got some business experience. We need someone that has the heart for the people, and as a pastor, I have the heart for the people, and that's why people should vote for me.
Very well said. Thank you very much. Well, that's all we have for today.
Okay.
I really appreciate you being
I
a guest
appreciate
on the
it.
show. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Come out March 17th and vote DUANE HENNEN for Congress in District 13. And I'm DUANE HENNEN, and I approve this message.